Let's open up our Bibles to Matthew chapter 14. Matthew chapter 14. I titled this, Keeping Our Eyes Up. Keeping Our Eyes Up. Power and faith in Jesus. We talk about power, leveling up. Things, there's this, for most of us, if not all of us, there's this desire to want to have more power, more of something. When we have food, we want to see the power level of the food go up. Add more MSG, add more salt, add more spices and whatnot. We want more power, right, in that food. For some guys, we want to see more power in our cars, and we want and we want to see our cars be taken to another level. Again, for some people, more power comes even just from ourselves. We want to work out more. We want to be stronger in many different ways. And then there are other people that want to see more power, more influence. Right? There's this desire to want to have more power in a lot of the different things in our lives. Right? How many of us stop to ask, can I get more power out of my faith? Anybody know how to do that? I mean, it's one thing to have faith in Jesus Christ, faith that Jesus died on the cross, rose from the dead, his blood shed on the cross for my sins, right? I mean, it's one thing to have faith. Does it make sense to have power that comes from that faith, from that relationship that we have with the Lord? I think that some of us, if not all of us, at one point or another, we have thought, yes, I have faith in Jesus. And we kind of just stop there. I have faith in Jesus, but we continue on with our relationships, we continue on with our work as if, that faith is just like a T-shirt with a logo on the back of us. And just say, we're just going around showing people, I have faith. But can people actually experience that power? Have you experienced that power that's found in that faith? Matthew chapter 14, that this narrative about Peter walking on water, actually about Jesus walking on water, that's an example of power. Power that is found in Jesus, but then, at least according to Matthew chapter 14, Peter stretched out and he got to experience that power through his faith in Jesus. A lot of us have read this story. A lot of us are familiar with it. Maybe we've heard lots of sermons about it, and probably right now, some of us may be thinking, "Oh, I already know the conclusion to this. Just stay focused on Jesus," right? That's really what it comes down to. But then, are we living that out? Are we living it out in a way where, yes, I'm focused on Jesus, but then I get to experience that power? One of the things that I've been talking a lot about is context. When we look at a passage, we want to make sure we understand the larger context around that narrative. What was happening before? What was happening? What I always ask of my leaders, and whenever I do Bible studies, there's a series of questions that we always ask. The first question is, who wrote this? The second question, who was it written to? So Matthew. Anybody know who wrote Matthew? It's kind of a trick question. Matthew, yes. Who was he writing to? Anybody know that question? Because it's important to understand who the audience is, because then that gives us a better understanding of how to handle this, right? So here you have Matthew, who is one of the disciples that walked alongside Jesus, one of the 12. He's writing this letter, and he's writing it to a Jewish audience. And so there's a lot of things that are going to be shared here that a Jewish audience are going to be able to appreciate. In fact, the theme is to prove that Jesus is God, that Jesus is the fulfillment of everything that has been talked about in prophecy. But then looking immediately here, what is the context? Just before, earlier on in the chapter, we see that Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist, was beheaded. Okay? This is important because then it plays into what's going to happen next. If you've ever lost a loved one, you know that it's going to greatly affect you. And Jesus himself, hearing that his cousin was beheaded, knowing that his cousin was doing everything in his power to try to influence and to correct this leader, Herod, in the ways that he was living, and then him losing his life as a result of that, it's kind of affect Jesus quite strongly. So there's that element there. And so as a result, what we see later is Jesus then saying, okay, I hear this news, I got to withdraw. I got to go and pray. But he, according to Mark chapter 6, which also shares this narrative, he retreated and got on a boat. I mean, that's how remote that he wanted to get away from everyone. He just needed that time to mourn, to pray, to kind of recharge, to be ready for what's going to happen next. But then he also notices that there's a bunch of people that have gathered around, and they're anxious to bring their sick over to Jesus. And so Jesus has this compassion upon them. He comes back on land. He shares this time. He looks upon them, according to Mark chapter 6, he sees them as people, as like sheep without a shepherd. So his heart really breaks for them. I mean, these are his own people, right? And so he has compassion upon them. He tells them to bring their sick and the lame over, and he starts healing them one at a time. And then his heart continues to grow for them and realizes there's a lot of people that have gathered around. And so we have that miraculous story of the feeding of the 5,000, right? Now, again, it's important to note. So a lot of times we'll look at the walking on water as separate from everything else, and we just forget what was leading up to this. You got to understand that the disciples have witnessed a lot of incredible things leading up to this moment, including the feeding of the 5,000 men, right? Not to mention women and children. So there must have been over 10,000, maybe even close to 20,000 people that he actually fed just from these meager portions that he was given. And then now we get to the point of how Jesus is preparing to walk on water. Not that he was intentionally going to walk on water, but circumstances were such that it created this opportunity. And it's not that he was showing off, but he was busy with a lot of things that were going on. So what I'm going to be doing here is taking passages from Matthew 14, Mark chapter 6, and John chapter 6, because they all share this particular walking on water narrative. And when you combine these three narratives together, they form a much more complete picture. So drawing from John chapter 6, perceiving then that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, Jesus withdrew again to the mountain by himself. So he sees all these people, and they're seeing like this is someone who can lead us and take care of us, right? To transform this nation so that we can be taken care of by this leader. So they're gathering and they're wanting to. It's not that Jesus suddenly just retreated, right? As we see in other passages, but he realizes what's going on in the hearts of men, and he withdrew himself. But then at the same time, according to Mark chapter 6, he then turns to his disciples and immediately sends them off, get on a boat, go across to the other side to Capernaum, and we're going to meet up there, and we're going to regroup and get ready for ministry from there, right? So he dismisses his disciples, gets them on a boat, sends them off. All the while, he turns around and he's trying to dismiss the crowd, all 10, 20,000 of them. And then we come back to Matthew chapter 14. After he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was alone. He was there alone. Again, he retreats so that he can recharge once again. You see this theme. When Jesus has spent a lot of time healing and preaching, he retreats. When he experiences something heavy, the passing of his cousin, he retreats. I think there's just in this alone, there's great power found in modeling that life of Jesus. When we are stressed, do we take that time to retreat and pray? But we've learned that Jesus spent a long time praying, right? So we go back to Mark chapter 6. When the evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch, which is about 3 a.m. to about 6 a.m. of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them. I don't know if you saw that. He meant to pass by them, just walking on water. He wasn't walking towards them. He was just going to walk right by them, right? But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Here he sees that they are, and again, you combine it with these other three narratives. According to John, they're actually about 3 to 4 miles out. Jesus walked on water for 3 to 4 miles, catching up to them, and then, and he's like, I'll meet you guys over there. But then they're probably looking at him like, it's a ghost. In the Greek, it's a phantasm, right? They're like frightened because they've never seen anything like that. And Jesus would probably pause, turn to them, and said, "Guys, take heart. It's me. It's I. Do not be afraid." And all the while, they're on this boat. The winds are blowing. The waves are knocking the boat, and they're just making slow progress across the waters, across the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus is calmly walking on the water. And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And you'll notice I skipped a part, and I deliberately did that, and we're going to come to that in a moment. When Peter and Jesus, got back into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Now, what's not shared across all three of these narratives is the walk that Peter experienced. I believe I found the key to experiencing power in our faith. Power in our faith. So going back to Matthew chapter 14, looking at verses 28 through 30 here. This is the only narrative that speaks of Peter himself walking on water. The other two only speak of Jesus walking on water. But here, and Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Now, let me pause there for a moment. What is Peter trying to say here? He's probably blinking his eyes in the midst of the wind and the waves that are crashing around the boat, and he's blinking and trying to see, okay, if it is truly you, because I'm not certain, but the sense here is that he's slowly becoming aware, maybe this is Jesus. Now, Jesus, if this is truly you, command me to come to you on the water. And Jesus, what does he do? He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" See, there's an element here that, as I was studying this passage, as I was reading through this and looking at the larger context, I realized I didn't go far enough in the context. If you take into consideration what was mentioned in Luke chapter 8, so what ties all these verses together, what ties all these Gospels together, is the feeding of the 5,000. What was happening before the feeding of the 5,000? In Luke chapter 8, and we had talked about it, the sending of the disciples 2 by 2. Do you realize what Jesus had done? He gathered his 12 disciples, and he said to them, I'm going to give you authority. I'm going to give you power. I'm commanding you to go out 2 by 2, to go to all these different places and do the exact same thing that I was able to do. You're going to now have the power to heal. You're going to have the power to preach about the coming of the kingdom of God. You're going to have and Jesus is commanding them, sending them out 2 by 2 to do exactly what they had witnessed Jesus doing earlier, which now makes sense why Peter would look at Jesus right now and probably having that experience of going out 2 by 2 fresh in his mind, and then at the same time coupled with the fact that he witnessed this miraculous feeding of the 5,000, and now seeing Jesus walking on water and realizing the things I saw Jesus doing. Lord, if you command me, I will be able to do it. If you command, I saw you healing. You command me to do it, I will do it. I will now have the power to be able to do it. Jesus, I saw you, I'm seeing you walking on water. You command me to do it, it will be so. I will now have that power. So when you look at this verse, Lord, if it is you, you've got to ask yourself, why does he say, command me? Command me to come to you. There's something interesting about Peter right here, in that, in contrast to a lot of people today who have faith in Jesus, what do we find Christians today doing? What do we find people of the New Testament time doing? They usually start off with, show me a sign first. Prove to me that you are God. Prove to me that you are Jesus. Prove to me that you want me to be able to do this, right? There is no faith in that. It twists it around. But what Peter does here is what all the other disciples were not able to get to understand, to comprehend. Peter's faith preceded the command. He had that faith in Jesus. He said, you just tell me. I have faith in you. You just tell me, and it will be so, right? We usually turn it around, right? We usually want to ask, Lord, give me a confirmation. A confirmation over a command. Do you see what's happening here? Maybe this is the key to recognizing and probably experiencing the full power that is found in this faith that we have in Jesus. We put faith off to one side and say, give me the power. Give me the power to be able to preach. I ask that all the time, right? Give me the power to witness. Give me the power to go on a mission trip. Give me the power. But we completely forget the faith aspect of it. But what if we bring it all the way around and flip it around and say, you know what? Lord, you command me. I saw you going on a mission trip. I saw you ministering in this way. And if you command me to go and heal this person, it will be so. Lord, I saw compassion in you. If you command me to have compassion, it will be so. I will have supernatural power to be able to do these things that I saw you doing. I see that's the faith has to precede the command. Do we have faith to begin with before he commands us to do what we're called to do? We often find ourselves flipping around. We only look at Scripture and we see the commands, and we completely forget about the faith. But if we flip it around and we say, I have great faith in Jesus. I have great faith in what he has done for me. I have great faith in that Jesus is God, that Jesus was there at the beginning of creation. Jesus is everything that he says he is. I believe in the 7 I am statements that he shared in the book of John. I have faith in all those things. Lord, command me. You tell me what I need to do, and I will do it. And you tell me to go and do these things. I know that I'm going to have that power, that authority to be able to go and do all these amazing things. I think it's so powerful. That's the key. Power of faith. The power of faith comes from that focus on Christ. When we say, I'm just zeroing in on Christ, but I'm not zeroing in just with my head. I'm not doing it just because that he existed, that I know the historical Jesus existed. This is faith that transcends all understanding. It does not make any sense for me to put my faith in something that I haven't seen Jesus die on the cross. I've only heard stories about it, but I believe that. I believe it happened. And I believe that there's power in his name. When we have that faith, now we are starting to experience that power. And the moment he commands us, the moment we hear his voice and says, go and do this, now we're going to start seeing power coming through our lives. Here's the power combo that I see. Number one, and this is just from what I'm learning, observing Peter and his life. What he did was he started off with seeing what Jesus was doing, knowing who Jesus was, knowing the things that Jesus was able to do. See, a lot of times we look at Jesus and say, yeah, he healed. He brought the dead to life, but I can't do that. Hold on. Are you sure you can't do that? See, a lot of us are reaching the limits of our faith. We've like started tapping out at this point. What if God said, and we see in Scripture, Jesus would say to his disciples, yeah, you've seen great, I'm massively paraphrasing, you've seen me do great things, but you guys are going to do even greater things. Jesus' ministry did not go into all the ends of the earth. It would be his disciples, his apostles that would do that. Jesus focused mainly on this small region, but today we have the ability to go way beyond that. Do you see what's happening? Do we truly have faith in Jesus? We see what Jesus is doing. Or do we see what Jesus is doing? The power combo is where when we see what Jesus is doing and we hear his command and we ask ourselves, is it drawing me closer to him? Peter is saying, I see what Jesus is doing. He's walking on water. Lord, command me. I want to be able to do just what you did. And Jesus says one word, come. And he started walking on water, and he's moving closer and closer to Jesus. See, the power from Jesus does not come when it pulls us further away from him. It does not come when we say, give me more money, give me more influence, give me more all of these things, give me the things that I want. Lord, I want you to bless me so that I can be further away from you. And God's saying, like, no, I'm not going to do that. That is not the purpose of this relationship. The purpose is that you see the life that Jesus lived. I want you to take that and go one step further and draw even closer to me. He's not going to give you good health unless it draws you closer to him. He's not going to give you power in your relationships, in your marriages, unless it's able to draw you closer to him. He's not going to answer your prayers unless it draws you closer to him. Because we see what Jesus is able to do. We see what Jesus is able to heal and restore. And if we don't believe that that's going to draw us closer to him, then there is no power. This is the power combo that I see. We sometimes run into those moments where we lose faith. We don't have faith. And what 2 Timothy points out here is such a huge thing. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. He's like that pillar. He will always be there, holding up everything else. We may see that pillar, but there's going to come a point when we can actually touch it and experience him. There are going to be days when we don't want to, but he will always be there. But that says a lot about us. Here's my challenge to each and every one of you. I want you to lock on to Jesus. You know, again, going back to that power combo that I see, you know, to look upon Jesus. Let's do what Peter was doing, to truly lock on him. Right? We all have our storms. We all have the waves that are crashing over us. We all have the winds that are just trying to distract us. You name it. I know. I've spoken to a lot of you. I know there are a lot of storms going on in your lives. I know there are hardships and challenges. These are your waves. These are your winds. You have your waters right in front of you. You have that water that Jesus is walking on right now in your lives. All we need to do is just lock in on Jesus. Don't worry about the health challenges. Don't worry about those relationships. Don't worry about all these different things that are pulling you left and right. What we need to do is, okay, Lord, where are you? What are you doing? What am I seeing in you? Command me. Command me to do that. And in fact, he is already commanding us. He's calling us to love our neighbors. He's calling us to love our enemies. Lord, command me, and I will do it. And I guarantee you, he's going to say, come. Walk on your waters. Don't look at the storms. Don't look at the waves. Don't worry about the winds. Just come to me. Lock on to Jesus and walk on your waters today. Let's come before the Lord in prayer. I want to challenge you. Whatever it is that you're struggling with right now, you have your storms. You have those winds, the waters that are crashing over the bow of your life. But we also have the waters that our Lord Jesus Christ is walking on right now. He's challenging us. He's laying out a challenge for us. Do we have that faith? The faith in Jesus to say, if you say it, it will be. If you command, I will experience that power. Maybe some of us see that. We see the love of Jesus. We see his compassion. We see his incredible mercy. And quite honestly, our prayers should be, Lord, command me. Command me to love, and I will have that power. Command me to forgive, and I will have that power. Command me to share this word with a friend, with a coworker, and it will be. We see what Jesus did, what he is doing right now. He calls us to walk on those waters. We just need to have the faith to say, Lord, command me. Lord Heavenly Father, once again, I know you hear each and every one of the voices that are going on in every single heart of ours right now, both online and in person. And Father, help us to not look at these waves, to not pay attention to the winds, but rather, Lord, give us eyes to be able to lock on to you, to have that desire to want to experience that power, to walk on our waters, to go to a place where we can truly experience miracles, signs, and wonders in this time and age, to really reveal to the world that our Lord Jesus Christ is alive. Lord, I pray that if there's anything that distracts us, may our doubt be extinguished. May that fear be removed. May the obstacles be cleared so that all we see is your outstretched arms wanting to embrace us. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray.